OS apps on Android. So this is kind of an interesting story. There's sort of a long-term trend in attention between building good mobile web apps versus, well, I shouldn't use the word apps there, building good mobile single-page applications versus building mobile phone-specific web apps. And I suppose the thing that sort of epitomises how to do this properly would be something like PhoneGap, where you build a single-page web application, but it's got access to all of the special phone features. And we're seeing this more and more with standardized stuff, where the W3C is providing more and more phone device features through standard JavaScript interfaces. And, you know, PhoneGap is pretty much the implementation that came before the spec. You can edit that out in post, I'm sure.
They won't.
So I sort of found this story a little bit interesting, but in one sort of sense, I'm sort of amazed that they had to do work to make web apps work on a phone with a browser.
I didn't think this story was that interesting, because the short version is you can run Firefox OS apps on Android now, which is great. It wasn't particularly difficult technically, because Firefox OS and Android are both based on the JVM, so that part wasn't hard, and Android already supplies WebKit-based browsers, so that part wasn't hard. So there was some work involved, but it didn't seem to be a particularly big issue. And the number of Firefox OS apps that are, there's basically nothing available for Firefox OS that isn't already available for Android. So there's no reason to ever worry about this.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I think, yeah, I mean, I think there are interesting things like the difference between security between the mobile phone apps. I'm going to have to pick my nomenclature at some point in time, but I'll just trample over both at this point in time. But there's a real big difference when you're installing a phone-specific application versus running a web app. Like, you don't get asked for any security features when you're running the mobile phone version.
I thought that you still would. The phone application is, you know, depending on the application, will need access to the camera, and you're going to be asked, do you want to give this this application access to the camera? And that's not going to change whether it's a native Android, Java, or JVM language written app, or whether it's a Firefox OS HTML5 based app.
That is true, but you get it's a different model in that you will get asked at runtime, do you want to give access to the camera, versus upfront, do you give access to this app to basically...
That wasn't gone into detail in the article, and I'm not sure if that will actually be possible, because Android's security model is very much based on you ask your security questions at install time.
Yes.
If you don't like the permissions it asks for, you don't install the app.
Yep.
Once you're installed, you get to assume that you have all of those permissions.
Yep.
Apps are going to break because they're going to be written for Firefox OS, assuming that any permissions they ask for at runtime will be granted or not.
You're not expecting particular error codes.
Actually, going in the OS to Android direction, probably not as many problems, because expecting things to be asked for at runtime when they've been asked for up front isn't going to cause a problem. Going the other way would, because apps that assumed that they had permissions and then later got denied them would get very confused. Not a huge deal.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I guess I think your point of view is mostly valid. I mean, I personally do use a number of web apps on my phone where there are native. Like, I already do this. Like, I use the mobile forms of Twitter and pretty much all the social media ones, because I don't trust their apps. Basically, I mean, we've had a couple of cases with the I think it was the Facebook app where they were not storing their passwords securely on the phone. I can't remember if that was Android or Apple, but I imagine it was probably the same problem on both of them. But certainly from a security perspective, I trust my browser much more than I trust an app. But you know, that might just be a particular neuroses of mine. I'm not sure.
Well, the neurosis of mine that this triggered is that I care about whether an app will work. If an app will work when I don't have data access. Sometimes I'm on Wi-Fi. I tend not to use mobile data. I would like my apps to work when I don't have them. Some do, some don't. The idea of being able to take a HTML5 app that would usually be a web page and install it locally, meaning that it could potentially work when you don't have data access, is good. The examples they've given here are all for social media services that you need data access for.
Yep.
The screenshot they have of a calculator app, it would be if you found a particularly good HTML5 calculator, being able to install it locally and use it when you're not online would be good.
Sure. Well, I think that's all of the comments we've got on this one, unless there are any comments from the Peanut Gallery.
How they got it to work, from what I gathered, I'm not sure if I saw the same article or not, is that the Firefox OS apps on Android work through the Firefox browser on Android. And all the APIs that are in Firefox OS are in the Firefox browser itself. So even on the normal desktop Firefox browser, you have access to the same APIs. And all they really did was make sure those worked on Android. And then I'm not sure, but they might have came up with like a packaging shim so that you can actually integrate them into Android. Rather than just running them in the Firefox browser. So because all Firefox OS apps can actually run in the Firefox browser on the desktop already.
So Daniel's comments, I'm not sure if the recordings picked those up, but Daniel's comments are that the API that Firefox provides is the same on the desktop as on the mobile phone. So everything that works on one should work on the other. And they did indeed do a little bit of packaging work, and some of it's automatic. Like it looks like it'll actually take an Android app and just turn it into one of these web app zip things without even having to do any manual work.
And Mozilla were in fact providing a web service to do exactly that. To take your Firefox OS and app and automatically turn it into an Android app and package it for you.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a manifest file that could be part of your web application, which effectively makes it a Firefox OS app, even if it wasn't written for Firefox OS. You can give a manifest file.
I mean, you have a list of local files that you need for both of them. So, yeah. All right, I think that does it for that one.